Welcome into the 615 Sessions podcast. Little slow jams to bring us in. Happy roster cut survival day to everybody who is marked safe. Teron Davenport is in the house here with us. Talking with TD is the podcast. ESPN.com is where you can read the main man. TD, always a pleasure to see you. How we living?
Oh, man, life is good, man. Couple days off and getting ready to get back at it soon. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So as we tape this, there's practice being held today, but it's not open to the media. Rand Carthon will speak to us tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, and then Mike Vrabel after the fact. But we do have an initial 53, Teron, and hell, it may change by the time this podcast ends, as these things are tend to be fluid. I do want to get your perspective, though, on who you think was the biggest surprise to make this initial 53-man squad.
That's a good question. I would probably say for me, it was Otis Reese, the fourth. I was surprised that he made it because I thought that Chance Campbell was going to be on the roster. He's a guy that used the draft pick on last year. Obviously had the injury and was out, but you saw him working with the first team at times. So that one probably surprised me the most.
So for me, it was Colton Dowell. And, Otis Reese is a good one. Dowell definitely had Dowell started to I don't want to say separate himself, but started to show a little more late in camp. And then I think the final preseason game had a couple of nice plays out there in the second half. We talked to him about it. He said, Mike Vrabel said he needed to settle down a little bit first, jitters playing at home, playing as a Titan for the first time after being a Titans fan. But Otis Reese, from what you saw of him, special teams, a safety transitioning to linebacker in the league, what kind of how – you may not have many observations of him. There's a lot of players to watch at this time of year, but what have you noticed from Otis Reese when he's been out there?
Well, I think just the fact that he is always around the football, that's one thing. And the speed that he plays with, he's making that transition to linebacker pretty well. Just had a couple dropped interceptions. I was talking to Blaine Bishop about it, actually, and he had asked me, he was like, he used to be a DB, huh? And I was like, yeah, And he said he could tell just by the way that he backpedaled and triggered on one of the passes. It was the one that hit him right in the hands against the Vikings, I believe it was. But, yeah, I think that there's been some sound play from him. He has that demeanor, that speed, and all of the things that you want to be a standout special teamer.
The transition of a lot of these college safeties to linebacker now, TD, we know that the game is skewing more pass heavy, and these things ebb and flow as the years go on and stuff like that. But the difficulty or the degree of difficulty, we talk about Peter Skoronski moving from tackle to guard. I thought Peter articulated that really well for a lot of us in ways that the audience may not think about, or the fan base may not think about from time to time, but thought really put it well. You mentioned a trait as a defensive back that Blaine Bishop picked up on. I'm sure you did as well, and the coaching staff obviously did, that allows him to play linebacker at this level. But it does seem like there's more of those players that are trying to make that transition in the league.
There are a lot more of those players. And for me, it started – so let's see. I'll go back to probably 2016, 2017, Deion Buchanan, when he came out of Washington State. I'm sure Kayla Anderson would be happy to hear that school reference. But, yeah, when he came out, and he was a safety, and they coined this term called money backer. And it was just basically a hybrid guy. He, in my opinion, was like the start of seeing that a lot more. And you've seen guys continue to do it. And it's just, when you're one of those ones where you're like, 215 to 220, somewhere in that range, and you got some speed, but not enough to be left at safety, that's what they do with you.
So looking at the numbers are thin basically everywhere because they kept 7 wide receivers. They kept 3 quarterbacks. They kept 4 outside linebackers, which is not something that they typically do. And we've seen, 5 defensive linemen, 3 tight ends, 3 running backs. It's a different looking roster initial roster than we've seen in years past. And, I don't want to take too much away. Like Lucas came into the radio show this morning, planning to talk about what it means about who the 2023 Titans are going to be. And I think there's some stuff that you can discern from that, but I don't think 3 tight ends or 7 wide receivers, Teron, is a sign of some kind of philosophical shift. I think that they felt that the two tight ends that they could get through on the practice squad, they were able to get through on the practice squad. We're starting to see those numbers fill out today, and that the numbers were needed more elsewhere. I am very glad to see them keep Caleb Murphy, though.
Yeah, I thought Caleb Murphy had an outstanding preseason, training camp, everything. He just gradually got better and better. And you saw that with the different things that he was able to do. You look at that last game, the Patriots game, he had a sack. He had 4 sacks, more than anybody else in the preseason. But you're right, when you look at the numbers, I think you look at the offensive line numbers also, and it kind of has to account for, okay, Kyle Phillips isn't ready, so they need to have somebody to return the punch. Kearis Jackson had a strong finish, as did Colton Dow, so they both made it, and the Racing McMath experience is done for the most part. Then you look at Dylan Raidens, and he obviously was off of PUP, but he's not ready to be out there and play yet, so they do need the depth there. If I'm Jordan Roos, I'm like, man, come on. Like, it's got to be tough for him, but, being released. But, so I think there will be some corresponding moves. They did claim Kendall Vildor, the DB from Georgia Southern. I remember watching him at the Senior Bowl, but he was with the Bears last year. They did claim him.
Starting corner for the Bears for a period of time there. And as Teron mentioned, there will be corresponding roster moves. The Caleb Murphy, I didn't get a chance to go to the Monday locker room availability before the roster cuts. No, and I'm glad that he's around for us selfishly, Teron, because he's a great quote. If for no other reason, we got somebody to talk to this year about how things are going. But I thought that his comments to us in the locker room on Friday night were pretty telling about Coach Ryan Crone. I want to play those for the audience here in just a second, right after I remind them that the podcast is made possible by Relax the Back Nashville. Hashtag We Got Your Back Nashville. They are the place to go if you need a standing desk, a new office chair, better sleep, mattresses, or pillows. Relax the Back has the literal support system that you need. Go to relaxtheback.com for more information. This was Caleb Murphy in the locker room with Titans Media.
I think the Lord has put me in a position where, I'm grateful for everything I have, so every opportunity I've had, I'm going to continue to, thank him and continue to put my trust in him.
You walk out of here pretty confident tonight,
whether
it's here or somewhere, you're gonna be somewhere in this league?
Oh, yeah, that's always been a known thing, no matter how I get there or when I get there, I'm going to be something somewhere at some point.
Thanks, Caleb.
How much did you appreciate the opportunity that you got from the coaching staff? Sorry if you already answered that, but kind of extended work there.
Oh, no, yeah. I love the coaches here. They see me. I came in here. I was probably a deer in the headlights when I got here, but, they took their time. They were patient with me, and, they helped me, build my craft and just work on some things that I needed to. So I'm very thankful for the opportunities that they've given me.
Specifically, like working with Coach Crow, what have you kind of taken from him so far?
Crow has showed me how violent I truly can be. I'll say that for sure. He's one of those guys, you just get juice from him coming in and out. So, he helps you with your confidence, just walking in and out, all those things. I mean, Crow's a great coach, great teacher. So, I listen about everything he says.
Didn't strike me as somebody who needs much confidence, Teron, but it's good to see that he's getting more violent as a result of the coaching that he's getting here.
Yeah, and that's true of Coach Crow, definitely, and also Coach Lori Locust. I remember early in OTAs, I remember watching practice with Coach Mack, and it was during the special teams period. He was over there with Coach Locust and Coach Crow, and they were just specifically working on pass rush moves. And it was really interesting just how they pulled him aside and worked with him solely. So to his point, it's been a progression.
Well, it's that he clearly has like a plan, like a pass rush plan. Mm-hmm. And that's evident in the way that he adjusts, the way that he finds ways to, if the tackle is riding him outside, he can dip back in and find a better way to the quarterback. Like I don't want to call it refined because he's still a pretty raw player, but he has more refined tools than your average UDFA. And he's not your average UDFA, right? He's the most productive sack artist in college football coming into the pros. And, I know we talked to him a lot in Minnesota after the preseason game about adjusting to the speed of this level. He kind of downplayed it a little bit. And at some point that moment will show up for him as it does for all rookies, no matter what level of football you're coming from. But I do think that he is more equipped than the average UDFA, and obviously he is, because he wouldn't be on the roster if he wasn't.
Yeah, no, by all means, and he definitely has a plan. I like the sack he had against the Vikings, right? You know, he was getting upfield. He noticed he was too far upfield and spun back inside and got the sack. So that's an example. And anybody that gets 25 and a half sacks, look, man, that's doing something in one season. So he clearly is a guy that they want to work with and that they should work with.
Just a quick note, because there's transactions happening throughout the course of the day. The Titans' former wide receiver Racing McMath is going to go on the Colts practice squad. So as these things start to fill out, they brought back Mason Kinsey to the Titans practice squad. Was there a cut yesterday, Teron, around the league that maybe caught your attention that you found particularly interesting? Doesn't necessarily have to be related or through the Titans prism, but just a name that you saw out there that caught your eye.
Yeah, Tyree Phillips getting released by the Giants is one that surprised me. I know he and Jeffrey Simmons are really close, but I mean, he got 18 career starts. He started a few games for them last year at right tackle. I figured that he would be in the mix as like their swing guy, but he got released. I think it was some early injuries that hurt him in camp, and he didn't play much in the preseason.
Speaking of swing guys, I mean, I know we're probably still a couple of weeks away from Dylan Raidens, being able to practice the way that they want him to. They don't really have a swing tackle on the roster right now. Is that the best case scenario for Raidens in this situation? I keep trying to find ways to put him in a starting offensive group that I still have questions about, but I just don't think that he fits there based on the positions, on the jobs that he's already lost.
Yeah, I wonder the right tackle position. Obviously, Mike Vrabel, he named Chris Hubbard the starter, but he very much indicated that it's for now, so we'll see. But he's probably the swing tackle option, really, Raidens. The report said that he's more comfortable at left tackle than right tackle. So, yeah, there's a spot there. You would want to put him in there, but I don't know that you can.
Well, that's the thing. There's not a more important player on that offensive line to their success or theoretical failure, right, than Dillard. He's just a left tackle. That's it. If he's not a left tackle, he's not anything else for them.
Yep. Because he's another one. They tried him at the right side, and it didn't work. It was better for him on the left. So,
as far as the preseason, went, Teron, obviously 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Malik Willis making a lot of progress, and I thought the way that Mike Vrabel articulated to us how they're trying to teach Malik certain things, to see certain things that he may not be seeing in real time, or that they're trying to replicate as much as humanly possible. And specifically plays like the NWI crosser that he missed against Minnesota. I think Sam Phelan, my colleague here at A to Z, asked him the question, and Vrabel kind of walked us through a practice scenario that they created for him to not throw the football, basically, or to throw away the football, basically to see the options that were out there and kind of teach him that throwing the ball away in certain circumstances is okay. They're still at a very rudimentary level with Malik, but there's no denying to anybody who's watching him that he's made good progress. The question I think right now is it sufficient? Should he have to play? Yeah,
that is the question. I think he can still play. I think what you do is what they should have done last year, a lot of rollout and half-field reads. It allow him to make those throws on the run like he did to Kearis Jackson in the Patriots game. I think if you do that, he's ready to play. But there's still – so with him, it just seems like there's so much going on, and he's thinking so much on every play. Sometimes it might make him play a little bit slower. But for the most part, you see him going through the progressions and doing the things that he has to do. But it's just the ability to just kind of work through that and stay on schedule. That's the important thing for him. And he's showing signs of being able to do that. But then you have those hiccups like that NWI throw that was kind of skipped to him a little bit short.
Well, it's just like the roster. It's an initial backup quarterback situation. Now they're not going to get many opportunities to get better as players right now. They're going to have them playing scout team and stuff like that at practice. And I don't even know how you split that up between Levis and Willis. It may vary from week to week, I suppose, depending on which quarterback that the defense needs to game plan for. But right now, I'm kind of looking at both of them as their potential growth plateauing for the moment. But Willis gives them the best option, right? Like, we just haven't seen. I assume the coaching staff hasn't seen enough from Levis to make any kind of determination. Otherwise, Malik would be much less of a certainty.
Yeah, there's more to see from Levis. I just love how, man, he gets in that red zone, and that dude he's money there, and that's a really good sign early for him. And it's just going to be one of those continued development processes for him, right? Getting the terminology down, getting the language down and everything. And it's going to take a bit, and him not being able to play those final 2 preseason games, I mean, that really hurt him.
Is there an opinion that you had, or maybe an observation that you made at the start of camp that you've changed on throughout the course of seeing these guys progress or develop, or that you've adapted based on the progress of a certain position group, maybe a certain player? Because the offensive line for me was the thing that I had the biggest question mark about coming in, and it's still the biggest question mark that I have coming out. I don't know that there's anything that they really could have done this offseason to move that substantially, but I'm kind of in the same place now that I was in mid-July about the offensive line situation. Do you have a position group that you maybe were looking at or thinking along the same lines?
No, I mean, offensive line was clearly the biggest one. I will say Chris Moore is better than I thought he was going to be. Now, I never felt he was, a bad player or anything like that, but he's actually better than I thought. The way he attacks the football, he's consistently getting open. But that attacking the football part, even when there's a pass he probably won't be able to get, like he did in the Patriots game, drawing that pass interference, and Mike Vrabel pointed that out. And it's something he's done consistently.
Their wide receiver depth, like 1 through 5, if however you want to stack them, Moore and NWI, it's as good as I've felt about a group that they've had really since Corey Davis and AJ were here. They may not be the same kind of players. They may not be the same heights on offense or reach the same heights on offense, but I do feel that depth, like what they set out to accomplish, retool the offensive line group as best they can and rebuild this wide receiver core, maybe not rebuild the wide receiver core, but build upon what they think they have in that wide receiver core.
Yeah.
It's a lot. That's probably the position group that my opinion has shifted the most on. It's not just because of Hopkins.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's you got guys developing, right? And you look at Chris Moore, you look at Treylon Burks, just the way he has come in and reinforced what we thought in OTAs and minicamp, and to see him back out there earlier this week was really good for him. So I agree, the receiver core is definitely better than I thought it would be. Kearis Jackson has actually been a better player than I thought he would be. So it's been good for them just as far as the showing. Unfortunately, Reggie Robertson wasn't able to transfer practice to the games, but he's someone I thought that was going to, stand out, but it just didn't happen in the games.
I think the thing for me, Teron, and obviously we'll have a down week before we all go to New Orleans here in a couple of days, but the thing for me is just how they're going to deploy all these different players that they have on offense. Like, there are a lot of people outside of Nashville and maybe here in Nashville as well buying Chig stock, for example. Yeah. Chig getting a lot of offseason love. He's tight end 1 this year, definitively. Nobody's going to dispute that, and potentially more opportunities with DeAndre Hopkins on the field. But I think, with Tim Kelly and all the different questions that I have about them, there seems to be enough with Spears and with Moore being a better offensive player than we might have otherwise realized, not just a special teamer. Like, there seems to be enough to give you a degree of confidence that this group can compete at a higher level than they did last year.
Yeah, I think Chig is a big part of that, and he had the hip contusion, which caused him to miss a bit last week, but he was back in practice earlier this week, or Monday, and that's a good thing. And it's really just about each week they have to find what's going to be the mismatch. Well, what are the advantages for them, and that's where they're going to have to go to.
He's Teron Davenport. You can check out the Talking with TD podcast. You can hear him on ESPN 102.5 throughout the course of the week. And ESPN.com, of course, is where you can read all of the work that my man is doing. Always a pleasure to hang out and talk some shop with you, TD. I appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate